organization runs weekly West Rock cleanups. You can check that Facebook or our website for the date and time if you want to get involved. It's something that we help the neighborhood around West Rock, and they pay us a stipend for the work that we do there and keeping the neighborhood clean.
You do a great job.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Neighbor to Neighbor is this Saturday, January 11th, from 8:15 to 12 p.m. in the quad right next door here. It's a program run by the Mount Scott Church of God, who graciously allows us to use their space for a monthly meeting. And then our monthly breakfast at the American Legion Hall will be Sunday, January 19th at 8:30 a.m. And they're located at 8329 Southeast 89. And so we'll get right into it. It's tonight, as you're all aware, these are the candidates that are running for Chloe Daly's seat on position 4 on the Portland City Council. And each candidate, I've asked all of us to allow each of them to speak their piece. We've allotted 15 minutes for each of them to make a statement, and then following that, 20 minutes of question and answer. And let's try to keep it a one-to-one conversation rather than all talking at once. And if you guys are comfortable with that, I'll just have you choose. If you're missing someone when we're doing the Q&A, we'll help you out. But I'd really rather turn it over to each of you as it's your turn. So we'll start off with Jack Kerfoot, and you may have the floor, sir.
All right, thank you, David. You know, I have to add some cue cards to get all my data correct. You know, I'm frequently asked why in the world I decided to run for city commissioner. And that question is usually followed by the next one, which is, are you crazy? The response that I consistently give is to ask another question. Are you satisfied with the issues the city is doing, the positions they're taking on our homeless crisis, on renewable energy, on violence in our streets, and fiscal incompetence? And what I hear consistently is a resounding no. So what I've done what I did before I actually filed for the actual campaign seat was to go out and reach out to a wide range of the leaders in the nonprofits and the faith-based groups dealing with the homeless crisis. Also small businessmen across the city. Also neighborhood associations, unions, organizations such as, well, the police, the fire, city workers across the city, to make sure that I understood what the major issues were and to make sure that what I thought were issues were really consistent issues, and to help me develop my policy or my position for the upcoming campaign. So what I developed is 5 major issues: the homeless crisis, safe streets, our environment, fiscal responsibility and fiscal discipline, and finally, responsive government. So let's talk about the homeless crisis. Portland has over 300 nonprofits and faith-based groups working to try and address our homeless crisis. And yet, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, recently came out with statistics that said in the entire United States, homelessness increased 2.6%. But in the state of California, 16.4%, and the state of Oregon, 9.7%. And if you take out the increases from Oregon and California, homelessness across the United States has actually gone down. So the fundamental question is, why are we having a growing rate of homelessness? Now, the city of Portland would say this can all be solved with housing. But when you talk to groups across the city, from transition projects to the faith-based groups, to Union Gospel Missions, Gung Ho, they consistently say it's far more complex than that. And we have to recognize that complexity. So the first, when you try and solve a problem, my background is science, you look at analogs. What's worked? What's proven to deliver results? The one program in the United States that's delivered results better than any other program is Haven for Hope out of San Antonio. They typically bring in 1,200 people a year, and they're running it over an 80% success rate. They are extremely well coordinated. They have private sector businesses, they have the city, and they have faith-based groups, and they have nonprofits, all working at this facility. It's been going on for over 10 years, and they're running it over an 80% success rate to address the homeless. What I believe we can do is look for better solutions that we have right now, and at the very least, look for coordination and collaboration with these different groups. Because right now, they're all competing for the same dollars, our dollars, the city dollars, and there's no coordination or collaboration. Now, the faith-based groups, it's important to recognize, have recognized that's a problem. So the Muslim Foundation, Jewish Foundation, Protestant churches, Catholic and Protestant, have now formed what's called the Open Table, where they come together and actually sit down and try to figure out ways to more effectively address the homeless crisis and other issues in our city. Now, when I met with them, I actually asked the question, would there be a seat at the table for city council or for a member of the city? The first reaction is, well, we hadn't even thought of that, and if everyone would agree, it would certainly help our coordination and collaboration in achieving the results to address the homeless. We also have to recognize, quite candidly, that the homeless crisis is very complex and very broad. It addresses, we have mental illness, we have also drug addiction, wide range of drug addiction, some of it created by, unfortunately, opioid epidemics that we've seen, but also heroin and methamphetamine. But we also have the economic homeless as well. We seldom see those. So if we talk about being, as the Portland State study says, 17,000 homeless, the reality is if we look at a more reasonable number, it's probably double that if we recognize that situation. And the biggest fear that I have is that right now we've got a record low unemployment. So when we have a recession, and we know it will happen, then the risk is that number will continue to increase because there will be more people out of work and potentially lose their job. All right, the next one, let's talk about the environment. We've hopefully, well not hopefully, but you may have seen the horrendous fires that have been going on in Western Australia, or in Eastern Australia, I should say. And we've also got to recognize that we've seen our climate in Oregon change over the last decade. We've seen less rain, we've seen fires, forest fires, and we're now seeing poor air quality. We have to develop a plan to address our climate. The city has committed to be 100% renewable energy by 2035 and zero carbon emission by 2045. But the reality is, it's talk, there is no plan. I've got the experience with 40 years in the energy industry and the expertise to develop a plan, more importantly, to make sure that we measure the results and communicate the results to everyone here to help you understand what progress we're making, and if we're falling behind, then address what we can do to address these issues. We talk about the environment. There is a potential environmental catastrophe sitting on the shores of the Willamette River in Portland. It is Zenith Oil Terminal. At the end of 2016, Zenith Energy came in and bought what was just a small asphalt plant. And what they started doing was shipping oil by rail from Canada over 1,100 miles. The facility can now hold over 63 million gallons of oil. Now this isn't light oil like you put in your car. It's called, well, it's tar sands oil. So it's very thick, it's very heavy. It also carries quite a few toxins as well. Mercury, asphalt, quite a few things that create are carcinogenics as well. The biggest risk we have with that facility, that oil is shipped down there and then it's exported by barge or by vessels overseas, primarily to China. The biggest risk is that facility is on what's called an earthquake liquefaction zone. And what that means is when there's an earthquake of the right magnitude and the right position, the earth turns to liquid, which means those oil tanks will rupture. It is about 250 feet from the Willamette River. And the cleanup on this would be horrendous. There's some very simple steps that the city can do to address this and mitigate this risk, and more importantly, close this facility. Okay, let's talk about fiscal discipline. Unfortunately, it's become a common habit to pick up a paper and read about how projects are 200, 300, 400% over budget. Or recently, we've read that a $500 million water treatment plant was actually going to cost $850 million, simply because they forgot to include the water pipes between the water treatment plant and the water facility. This is inexcusable. And there are very simple steps that you can take to make sure when you come up with a cost estimate that it's an accurate number if you're going for a bond issue. More importantly, there are very simple steps that you can take to make sure the project is completed on time. I've led multi-million and in fact multi-billion dollar projects around the world. It's not that hard to do, and there's no reason our city can do it. And that's something that I can deliver to the city council. Now, we also have to talk about responsive government. The issues that I've heard people tell me time and time again is once someone is elected, whether it's a mayor or a city commissioner, they lose all interest in the people in the community. And with the city government that we have, each commissioner is supposed to be listened to the entire community, but it doesn't happen. And what I consistently hear is people do not feel that their voice is being heard. So what I'm pledging to do is, if elected, I will on a regular basis go out at least twice a month to different parts of the city and have open town hall meetings to listen to your issues and to make sure that your voices resonate through City Hall. I plan to invite the press to make sure your issues are carried back to City Hall and that we have a more responsive city government. I think it's important to recognize that Portland city government with the council situation that we have is quite unique. Mayor Ted Wheeler gave an interview a few years ago where he said the biggest problem that we have with commissioners is they're expected to lead departments, but it's rare that any of the commissioners have any experience in business, that have ever led a department or understand how to manage a budget. I've got 40 years leading into projects around the world, and my expertise specifically is turnarounds and startups, particularly re-energizing underperforming businesses to deliver superior results. And I firmly believe I can deliver results to you because you're the clients that we need to take care of and listen to. Thank you very much. Yep.
So I like what you said about responsive government. Are you aware out here in East Portland, I'm an East Portlander for life, that we don't have the same infrastructure that the rest of the parts of the city have? We have been so ignored out here that we don't even have basic sidewalks.
I'm well aware of that as well. And the other question we've got to ask is, what can we do to do a better improvement in the city, in the different areas of Portland? You know, one of the issues that you hear people complain about repeatedly is our traffic is horrible, okay? Well, part of that is people have been moving further and further out because of the cost of housing. And so that creates more of a traffic jam as well. What I'd like to see us do is to really look at creating what I call economic development zones. These approaches have been used like in the New York State to try and bring in businesses to create local jobs. Local jobs in this part of the city would mean the traffic problems would go down and more importantly would reinvigorate the community economically. So yes, I am aware of those issues and I realize that we need to do a much better job of allocating our budget. What I find it to be quite candidly is a lot like the king of old would go through the peasants and throw out a few coins along the side of the road, and that was the way they tried to address the problem. That's not the way to run government. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a question as far as your feelings towards neighborhood associations. There's been feelings going on city council that the neighborhood associations have too much power. Frankly, I don't think we do, but I'd like to know what your
There was a
opinion
city council meeting back in November, I believe it was. I got there and I actually gave testimony on that, and on my webpage you'll actually see the testimony I gave. And I'm proud to say that the position I took is compatible with the League of Women Voters, who I've also met with on a wide range of issues to understand their positions on different issues as well. So yes, I am supporting the neighborhood associations. I also would like to see the elevation of other groups as well. to have an equal place at the table, but to really develop a position, you're going to have to bring the neighborhood associations to the table and not exclude them as they did before.
Well, every neighborhood has its own set of problems.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I think it's really important that the neighborhood associations do carry a lot of weight, because basically we're fighting for our neighborhood.
And with the city government that we currently have, that's another compelling reason to keep that right now. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
There's 5 on city council, correct?
Mayor and
Mayor,
four,
yeah,
and four
and four.
commissioners, yes.
And Portland seems to be exploding, I mean, people coming into Portland. Have they ever thought about, how do you feel about having 7 people on the council, where it's more, people can be, I don't know who to go to for my region, you know, I mean,
That's one of the challenges with the form of government that we have. The form of government that we have is over 100 years old.
oh, right.
Absolutely. And so the fundamental issue is we have commissioners that are supposed to represent everyone, but in actual fact, they represent no one.
Yeah.
Yes. So do I support the idea of different forms of government? I definitely do. The City Club has come up with a position with different plans as well. So has the League of Women Voters. They've done an excellent summary of the strengths and weaknesses of the current form of government. I believe you're going to find they're going to take a position that they too support the idea of a different form of government than we have today.
Whether going to a city manager and then, you know.
I haven't read the final report yet. It's not out, but I think that's what they'll be going for. Yes, sir.
I've noticed that the city seems to be creating new taxes and taking on new responsibilities, or what I see as far from the core responsibilities of the city, and in fact encroach on the county, the state, and the federal government's mandates, and that when those taxes are spent, that they go to a great black hole.
I will tell you that I've spent quite a bit of time with small businesses around Portland. Paul Knowles was a very insightful perspective. His comment is not only he owns the business that he has right now, which is a barbershop, and even though he owns the building, the property taxes have been increasing in such a dramatic way, he's not sure he can make it economically much further. Huber's, which is a long-standing institution, restaurant, okay? I know one of the owners, Paul Lorry, and he told me that in 2017, because of the violence that we had downtown, they actually ran the restaurant at a loss. Now they're making a profit now, but the city's actions, and particularly looking for increased fees, are simply causing the cost for the small businesses and business across the board to actually escalate. So what they don't quite recognize is the fact that they talk about increasing costs for housing. All right. However, the increasing costs by the city are contributing significantly to this increasing cost for housing and for rents, people that don't own homes. Particularly, I've talked to a contractor who works specifically at buildings, homes and duplexes and triplexes in the Portland area. He's told me that in 2018, the fees he had for let's say 1,500 to 2,000 foot building were about $22,000. It's now more than doubled this past year. What the city is now doing is looking for more ways to meet revenue, because they've had an inability to actually manage their budgets and an inability to manage their funds. Before Nick passed, he and I were on Twitter together, and I put out a rather scathing criticism of a cost overrun of a city project. And he came back and he challenged me, and he said, now, that wasn't city parks. I said, absolutely, Nick, you're right. My concern was this one, which was the water treatment plant. My real concern is that when we can't manage our budget, it's going to cause an impact to the other businesses like the Parks Department. And he came back and he said, I share your concern. Okay? So in my opinion, one of the more grounded and responsible people in our city council with his passing was a huge loss.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about your reference to Haven for Hope
Okay.
to address the city's homeless situation. And I just remember reading a couple of years ago something about it which sounded very, very appealing. And I thought that we had explored that as a city, and I'd like to know where it went and why.
Again, talking to Homer Williams and other people that dealt with that issue. What the city council focused on was the idea of the Wapato jail as a facility. We built the jail for $54 million, I recall, and then they sold it for about $2 million. Five? Okay, so I'm sorry, I underestimated the sale price. So basically 10 cents on the dollar. The idea was a large facility. Haven for Hope is 44 acres, okay? They can take on 1,200 people a year, and they have these programs go on 3, 4, 5, 6 years to get them back on their feet and up and living a productive life. Many of them are dealing with drug addiction, but also they're dealing with physical ailments. They also need to relearn how to the job skills to get this. So it takes time to get them back in the workforce.
Where do you anticipate that it could be housed?
I don't have an exact location. I need to look at an area. I think quite candidly the way you start is the way Haven for Hope started, which you sit down with the businesses, the major businesses around town, like Nike, like Intel. They want this homeless problem addressed as well. Okay? Absolutely they do. And so would most of the nonprofits and all the faith-based groups as well. Sit down and work together. Where can we put something like this together to help these people, to help the homeless that we have right now? Okay? Yes, sir.
Jordan Snitzer's been trying to open the Wapato jail.
Yes,
He's
he
bought
has.
it, and he's been trying to open it as exactly that kind of facility. And the
Yes.
city and county won't talk to him because they're afraid that if you repurpose a jail, it will feel insulting to people who are homeless. Although my guess is that most of those people would rather be warm and dry than living under a blue tarp.
Well, few that I've talked to would agree with you.
So how the city doesn't seem to want to even talk to him about that. How do you feel about that? I've been there, and it doesn't look like a jail at all. It doesn't feel like a jail. Have you been out there?
Yes, I have. And my comment to you is, I'm for solving the problem of the homeless, okay? I don't care where it is, Wapato, I don't care where it is. Let's sit down and solve the problem and not fixate on the fact that it has a name jail attached to it, because it never was even a jail, okay? It never was an operational jail facility. It was built, but then it was basically abandoned from that standpoint. My question is, how do we do the right thing, okay? Fundamentally. And yes, he is a key player that needs to sit down. One of the pushback, again, is some on the city council, and I believe Ted Wheeler's one of them, believes the HUD model, which is all we need is affordable housing and we can address the homeless crisis. I'm sorry, that's not correct. If you talk to the groups across the city, as I have been for the last 3 to 4 months, it is a complex problem with many issues associated with it, and we need a united effort to try and help these people that are on the streets. Other questions?
Yep. What do you plan to do about domestic terrorist groups like Antifa?
I am opposed to any violence whatsoever, whether it is Antifa or any other group that is protesting and causing violent demonstrations. I go a long way back to the Vietnam War as a veteran, a Vietnam vet. And yes, there were a lot of protests against the Vietnam War, but most of them were done peacefully from that standpoint. We have the freedom of speech, but at the same time, we do not have the freedom to riot. Okay? So, yes, sir.
How much exposition takes? There's a follow-up to that.
Huh?
There's a follow-up to that.
Okay, that's fine. I think the way, from what I've read, I'm not taking this job for the moment. From what I've read, I think it depends on the number of years of experience you have and your education, and I think the range of salary goes from like $88,000 up to, I think, $120,000, something like that.
Okay, so if challenged, could you do the job for half the money?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we have a comment on that?
Okay, that's
Can I-
fine. But
can
what
I
I'd like
propose-
to do is to see that money contributed to major charities across the city.
That's your choice, but can I have a major commitment by all the candidates to do for half the money?
Yeah, well, actually, let me ask you the question. Why can't we do, why aren't we paid the same salary that a state senator is?
That's the issue, because we have somebody in charge that's doing their job for free, and we have wonderful results.
That's president.
Okay. Any other questions? All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next up is Mingus. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming out tonight. I'd like to start by thanking our organizers for pulling together this event. I think it's worth noting that this is an incredibly important election. Something unique is happening here. We will have 4 of the 5 seats on City Council up for a vote in this election cycle. I'm a little bit of a political historian, and I've been trying to figure out if that's ever happened before, and I don't think so, which is really incredible. That has a couple of implications. One is after Election Day, the direction our city is going to go in is going to be new and different. And that direction is going to be determined by the people in this room, the voters. And so I also want to thank you for coming out and participating in this discussion about the future of our city. This is something I care about very much, and I think this is a critical juncture for Portland. Today, I thought I'd start out by first telling you a little bit about why I'm running for City Council, and then I'll share with you some of the reasons why I think I'm qualified for this job. And then I have 4 or 5 things that I really want to get done during my term, and I want to talk to you about those, and then hopefully we can open it up and have a discussion. First, why am I running for City Council? As Jack pointed out, this is the first question you get whenever you throw your hat in the ring. And for me, I have 3 really compelling reasons. One is, I love Portland, and I'm really concerned about the direction our city is going in. I've been here for a long time, and I've worked out in East Portland, so I know a lot of the issues, and we all know, and I think probably agree on what the issues are. There's too much homelessness, there's not enough affordable housing. These wars against our neighborhood associations seem insane. Often it feels like our city hall is broken and toxic and unable to solve the problems that we have. I see neighbors and businesses starting to give up on Portland. I used to work out here. You have a fleet of cars, let's say. You've had people break in and cut your gas lines to steal the gas a couple of times. You realize I can't do this out here. Or you have people who are afraid about quality of life issues, like homelessness or mental health issues that you see on the streets. And go, I can't raise my kids here. And I'm a dad. I have a 9-year-old and 10-year-old boys. And I care about and wonder and fear what their city is going to be like when they inherit this. So I know and I see that my neighbors are more angry than I've ever seen Portlanders before. This isn't the Portland I know, and I know we can do better. The other reason why I'm running for council is, as I mentioned before, I'm a dad. I got a 9-year-old and 10-year-old in public schools, 4th and 5th grades. And I'm starting to worry about the city they're going to inherit. In 10 years, when they move out of my house, are they going to be able to afford to live in Portland 10 years from now? I don't know. Are they going to want to live in Portland 10 years from now? We take a look at what's happening with homelessness and traffic deaths, and frankly, the anger and disappointment that I see growing amongst us. I don't know. But I also know that we have to do better. I'm a dad, and I bet a bunch of you are parents too, and certainly all of you have people you love, and you want to sort of bequeath to the generation that's below us a city that they can love too. And I think that if we work together, we can help build that city. And the last reason why I'm running for Portland City Council is I think I have the qualifications and the background to make a real difference. Let me talk to you a little bit about my background and why I think I might do pretty good in this job. I'm a long-time Portlander. My roots go back to the 1970s. I've had a family here for my entire life. I got my BA from Reed College in political science, and then I went on to get a PhD in government from Cornell University. I've split my professional career in half. For half of my career, I've been an academic teaching political science, things like urban politics and public policy. at places like Cornell and Brandeis University and Portland State University and Reed College. And my other half of my career has been working as a public servant here in Portland. Over the course of my career, I think I've worked for almost all of the local governments that you can have. I used to be the manager for the city's crime prevention program. I also help manage our neighborhood association systems, and I have those jobs because I believe those programs are really important. When Bev Stein was county chair, I worked in her office. I also worked for the Portland Public Schools and their intergovernmental relations office, where I was down in Salem urging our state legislature tours to provide adequate funding for our kids. And I know East Portland. Up until relatively recently, I used to work for Historic Park Roads, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting small business development and the quality of life on Sandy Boulevard between like 99th and 122nd. And so when you talk about infrastructure issues, I know what you mean. I spent 4 years trying to get a crosswalk built across Sandy Boulevard at about 114th and Sandy. And I'm proud to say that actually that crosswalk is going to go in, but it took like 5 years in many meetings and many calls to City Hall. And those calls to City Hall and those letters and those meetings we went to are one of the reasons why I'm running. I know it's too hard to make change. So those are some of the background that I have. One of the things that it's taught me is sort of how our local government works. Too often it doesn't work well enough. One of the things that's unique about Portland is that we have divided up responsibilities between a bunch of different governments, and even within the city, we have a city that's divided against itself. So trying to get the police bureau to work with the crime prevention program because there are two different bureaus, that's really hard. It doesn't work that way. And that's ridiculous. We need to change that and make it possible for our local governments, especially our city government, to work efficiently and to integrate services. Which gets me to what I want to do on city council. I have a broad agenda. My whole list is about 20 different items, but let me talk about 5 that I really care about. First, homelessness. We all know but this is probably our top problem. If we don't get on top of homelessness, we really risk losing the soul of the city. I think we're at a tipping point on this, and we have to make progress now. Both for the sake of the people who are living out there on the streets. We know it's winter, and we'll be lucky if we can get through this winter without someone freezing to death. And also for our kids and our community and our businesses. As I've gone out over the course of this campaign, I've talked to dozens of businesses who told me, I don't know if I can be in downtown anymore because every day I got someone sleeping in front of my door. The first thing we do when we get to our shop is to pick up the needles. Often we have people having mental health crises in our stores. I just can't do it. Downtown doesn't work. And that is unacceptable. We have to get back to having a city that works. The other thing that is quite important to me, and I think is key to making Portland work in the future, is bringing more affordable housing to the city. I was not joking when I fear about my kids' ability to stay in the city 10 years from now. And I think all of us who are kind of reaching retirement age or starting our lives may find ourselves priced out of Portland. That's not the Portland I know. That's not the Portland I want. I think we can do better, and I have some suggestions about how we can bring more affordable housing to the city. If you want to talk about that some, let's get into it during the Q&A. The third thing that I really care about, and I think this is the thing that can be a game changer for Portland, I think it's finally time to give up on our commission form of government. It is not working for us. We managed to survive with this thing for about 100 years, and I think we were able to get away with it because we were largely a small town. There are a lot of gray hair in this room, and so a lot of us can remember when Portland was kind of a sleepy timber town, but we're not a sleepy timber town now. We've got another 250,000 people coming to the city in the next 20 years, and we can't afford to pretend like we are We are not a big-time international city. We have to be better at government. Our commission form of government is one of the things that's holding us back. It's one of the reasons why the crime prevention program isn't caught to the police department. It's one of the reasons why if you've ever tried to pull a permit to build something, you often get ridiculous contradictory advice or directions on how to proceed. The other thing that I really want to do, and I will pledge this to you, when I'm on city council, I will end the wars against the neighborhood associations. I used to be the manager for the neighborhood association system. I know what you folks do, the cleanups, the movies in the parks, the sort of giving city feedback on infrastructure proposals. You know, I have been to, over the course of my career, maybe 100 neighborhood association meetings. So I know what you do, and I know every neighborhood association is different, and I know every neighborhood association does its best, wants to be better. And I think that you deserve a city councilor who will help neighborhood associations do the important work you do and will actually listen to you. It's crazy that you don't have that, and I apologize. That's wrong, and I care about that a lot. And the last thing that I think is really important that I want to bring to Portland, and I think is crucial, is a change in our political culture. I see us divided and angry, unable to talk. I feel like this is not the Portland way. This is not the Portland that I remember. This is not the Portland I grew up with. You know, one of the reasons why I am here and I'm the person I am is because I grew up in Portland in a time when we were really good at local government. You know, we reclaimed the waterfront. You know, we built this interesting and unique system for bikes. You know, we made Portland a city that's admired around the world. But I don't think anyone looks at Portland's government today and says, you guys are at the cutting edge of public policy. I think we're actually failing. And this is not the Portland way. I think we can do better. But in order to do better, I think one of the things we have to acknowledge is that we need a change in leadership. You know, I think City Hall has done a terrible job of respecting people like you. I think they've done a terrible job of servicing the entire city. I think they have not had the courage to make the hard reforms that will make our city work better, like charter reform. And I think that this is a pivotal moment in our history, in the history of our city. If we don't get in on top of the challenges that we face today, homelessness, affordable housing, sort of our toxic political culture, we're going to lose the soul of our city. And we're the folks who are, you know, the grown-ups in the room at this point, which is kind of scary and sobering. But I want to embrace this responsibility. You know, I'm running for office because I always believe in doing the most important thing. I love the city. It's, you know, behind my children, it's the most important thing to me. And I think that the thing that I need to do at this moment and the way I can contribute to our city is to reach out to you and ask you to help me change Portland. And if we pull together, I know we can get this done. And I'm sure you must have lots of questions. So why don't we take the time I have left and just talk.
I believe if you want to change the culture of the city, you have to do three things immediately. First, you need zero tolerance on homeless. Because if you do not do this, we'll end up like San Francisco, we have lost 400 restaurants in 1 year alone. We'll end up like Seattle, with having its own problem. If you want people working, put them to work. Second thing, I wish to see a change the system where the mayor cannot be the police commissioner, because that makes the mayor its own independent. Right? I mean, zero oversight on that. I even had a bargaining match with the mayor 2 months ago saying that Chief Outlaw was a gimmick, and he's from Europe. 2 months later, I was right.
Well, I hear you. And actually, I agree with you on some of that. I'm probably not a zero tolerance guy on homeless folks, but I do have plans to actually make progress on the homeless situation. Let's talk about that for a second. according to the estimates that I see, the official estimates, there are maybe 2,000 houseless Portlanders out there sleeping on the streets every night. That number sounds very low to me, but those are the official numbers. We'll take that right now. And the official numbers also tell us that 400 of those are vets. Now, housing vets is not a resource issue. We have, through county sources and city sources and federal sources, we have the dollars to put those people inside in their own homes today. And the reason why that's not being done, and we still have, hundreds of vets sleeping on the streets, is a matter of will, political will. I think we can change that, and we must change that. I'll also say that, I think Wapato might be part of the solution. I've looked carefully at this proposal. Frankly, the asks to the city for this are very minimal. They haven't asked for any dollars. I think in order for this facility, for the city to facilitate this, what we have to do is some minor zoning changes. And I think that if we're truly in a housing emergency, we have to be open to trying something different. And when I'm on council, I will be there to listen and participate in that. I'm going to leave it right there because there are a bunch of different questions. Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Affordable housing.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Does that mean that I, as a property owner, you're gonna tell me what I can and can't charge for rent?
No, actually, and you can't do that anymore. The state of Oregon has passed a form of rent control. So basically, it caps how much rents can go up by basically about 10% a year. And part of that statewide deal is that local governments can't come in and tell you how much you charge for rent. So even if I wanted to, which I don't, I wouldn't. Other questions? Okay.
So you're saying you want to get rid of the commissioner kind of?
Yeah.
What would you replace it with?
Sure. Well, I think number one, this is a discussion that we will have as a city in terms of what works best, but I'll tell you the things that seem to make sense to me. There are two pieces to this. One is, let's hire a professional city manager to coordinate our programs. As I think Jack mentioned, one of the crazy and frankly dangerous parts of our form of government is that our elected officials not only kind of set broad policy, they literally kind of micromanage particular bureaus. And it's a rare politician who comes into this line of business because they've spent their career managing major water projects. But there are people out there who do know how local government works at a micro level. I think we need to put a manager like that in charge of all the bureaus. This will also make it possible for bureaus to talk to each other. If you kind of follow Portland politics really closely, you know that often one commissioner is at war with another commissioner. When I was at the crime prevention program, often the other bureaus wouldn't want to cooperate with us because they felt like we were like police, which we weren't. But they have, some bureaus have their culture and other bureaus have different cultures, and the fact that we have this weird commission form of government makes it possible for just dysfunction to flourish. So that's one thing I'd like to see. The other thing that I'd like to see is moving or changing how we elect members of city council. Right now, we elect members of city council at large, so you have to run through the entire city. And one of the things that that does is, number one, it's not very inclusive. When's the last time you had a member of city council who lived east of 82nd? I don't, political historians, I don't know if that's happened. Maybe it has, but it certainly hasn't happened in a long time. And that's a problem. As a guy who spent many, many years working in Park Rose, where your day begins by picking up, orange caps and needles so people can come into your business, I know what it's like to live out here and work out here and try to grow a business out here. And that's why I think that we would be much better served as a city is if we elected members of council by districts. We have people who are actually from this community. You can clap for that. That's all right. So those are two of the major changes I'd like to see. And this is literally, I think, the most important change we can make. I mean, homelessness is a huge, urgent problem we have to deal with today. But if we want to get on top of our city and start to have a government that actually works, we have to change the charter. It's killing us. Go ahead.
I say no because you'll create deep in political cronyism in those districts, if you do it that way. At large, you at least have to answer to the entire city. And also, you should be able to be growing a database at large as to become the mayor, the governor, and future offices and all that.
Well, there are trade-offs. So here's, we might just not land on the same page on this, and I hope that can be okay. But my proposal, or the system that I really like, is a mix between single-member districts and at-large. So you could have, I don't know, maybe 5 or 4 people that you would elect by region, and then maybe 2 or 3 that are elected citywide. That's a proposal I would have. I hear your concerns about fiefdoms, but the other thing to really realize is our system that we have now really promotes this fiefdom thing. Once you've got a member of city council, you are literally, you get 2 or 3 bureaus, and that's all you care about. The other thing I'd point out about this system is one of the questions that I didn't answer last time was your concern about the police department. If you move to a commission form of government, or at least a city manager form of government, now you don't have the mayor managing the police department on a day-to-day basis. So I think there's something in here for you that you might like. And I, as a guy who's just spent a lot of time in city government, and I can tell by the way people are dying, our form of government is really one of our problems. And this will also be a discussion. This will not be a quickie city council vote. I think that this is literally like changing the constitution for the city. We should have a discussion about this. This will take a long time, but we got to get this done. Other questions? Go ahead.
So, but right now we have the current system that we have, and so you'll be having to work with the mayor. What mayor are you endorsing?
I haven't endorsed any mayor yet, and I'm going to keep my nose out of it and just try to focus on my own race for that right now. But I look forward, I try to be a constructive, collaborative guy, and I look forward to working with whatever mayor the people of Portland elects.
You're looking to replace Ms. Udaly.
Yep.
What would you do about Suffree?
I think it might not be appropriate to talk about super specific personnel matters in a forum like this.
And the gang.
But I will say that certainly any bureau that I get, especially Civic Life, because I know that bureau quite well, I want to start out with an audit and a close look at the work that's been done over the past couple of years. I think that's the only way you can get a clean start, or at least if I inherit this form of government and I get Civic Life, I want to have a clean start, and I want to have transparency. And there are problems in the city government that have not been addressed and been allowed to fester, and I think we just got to get them out on the surface and talk about it and deal with them however we have to deal with them, no matter who was right, the city or somebody else. Other questions? Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Alyssa, you have the floor now.
It's my turn. Okay. A little nervous. Just gonna warn everybody about that. I have a speech prepared here. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Alyssa Vinsonhaler. I've been a First and Second Amendment activist in Portland for a few years now, and I'm running for Portland City Council, City Commissioner, position 4. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, where I served as a cavalry scout with the 101st Airborne Division. I'm transgender, as well as a proud member of the Northern Cheyenne Nation, and I'm fully committed to universal equality for all Portlanders, regardless of identity, as we all deserve the right to be treated equal. I'm running for Portland City Council because I remember what Portland looked like before I enlisted to serve our country in the U.S. Army back in 2013. And while serving, the City of Roses was a beautiful city. I always made sure to relate to those I served with. But after coming back to the city in 2016, I watched this city become practically unrecognizable from the city I grew up in and had once called home. I still do, but when I walked the streets of Portland, I used to know as safe. I saw those I once knew as financially responsible become homeless. As I walked the streets of downtown Portland, I saw needles in what once were known as safe public areas, but now are something else. And in November 2016, when I turned on the news, I saw angry mobs destroying the property belonging to the city and people of Portland. And from there, I've seen Portland become apathetic to the issues of angry mobs physically assaulting the people of Portland, with no seeming plans to actually do anything about this violence from our local leadership. Instead, seeing actual encouragements for these actions from our elected officials against people who both visit and live in Portland. This is ridiculous, and it needs to change. Because Portland is better than this. What I want for our city is, first of all, to become fiscally responsible again, a mindset Portland hasn't had for quite some time. I want our city to respect the Constitution again, being mindful of the rights granted by the Constitution while crafting city policy. I want to see our streets, sidewalks, and public parks become safe again for citizens and their families to all enjoy, ensuring that these public spaces are kept to a clean standard that ensures Americans and their families can safely enjoy them. And I want to respect individuals' rights to live our truest, freest, most equal lives we can, ensuring all Americans have the right to, as President Jefferson put it, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I also want to separate the mayor's position as police commissioner, replacing that role with an official elected by the people of Portland, as those who police our communities should be chosen by the people, so we all feel safe. From my interactions with the people of Portland, I know that the people are tired of city leadership that seems to focus on disenfranchising citizens, such as City Commissioner Udaley's insistence that neighborhood associations lose their ability to have their voices represented in Portland City Council like they currently do. Or City Commissioner Udaley's past tendency to make awful claims about reporters from the Oregonian who are just trying to ask our elected officials questions. And this isn't an isolated incident, but I only have so much time to talk about this. To talk about the wrongs of Portland City Council City Commissioner Chloe Udaley. Someone using their office to push an agenda instead of trying to solve actual issues the people of Portland face, all while swiftly ignoring criticism of her interactions. I want to ensure to all of you that compared to her, know this. My top priority will always be about getting Portland back on track, back to a city we can all be proud of. I want this neighborhood association issue to be sorted out because everybody here has the right to have their voices represented at the council. And yeah, I want Portland to get back on track. Thank you, that's my speech. Questions?
What role do the police play in protecting our city? Do we have enough police protection? And do they get the support of city council at this time?
As of right now, in my opinion, our police don't get enough support from our city council, but I believe that's because the mayor, as the police commissioner, I don't feel like he's not doing a good enough job. He shouldn't be the mayor and also the police commissioner because he should be focusing his time on being the mayor and getting the city back on track. But instead, what he's focusing on is, he's drawing himself into police issues, and I feel like that's not a good use of his time. I feel like instead we should have a police commissioner who actually, is elected by the people. That way everybody at least has a choice in, deciding who polices this community and protects them. I feel like we definitely should have more police though, because there's not enough doing their job, as of right now.
My issue is that where they claim they're trying to affordable housing. Last winter, I counted 18 different set of cranes dropping drywall on new structures here. And we're importing how many H-1B visa workers. So is it the fact that we don't have a base population able to take on high-tech jobs? If so, where does education have to be? Should education be audited? Saying we're paying this much in tax money, and we're not getting quality individuals in graduation. We will take local jobs, do local work, and live locally here.
Sure. So I believe that we should actually launch a citywide audit on where all of our money is going, the taxpayer dollars. That way we can actually find out first how much money we're dealing with before we start setting out on, issues like that. Before we start funding departments that, and everybody's not entirely sure where their money's going as of currently, you know what I mean? So what we should do instead is that city council should go and, have a citywide audit on, where all the money is going right now. That way at least the people are informed on what's going on. And I'm sorry, what's the rest of your question?
My other question is that I talked to the first candidate here, what's your name, sir?
Jack.
And I want to see a different financial compensation for all city officials that is based, merit-based on real, in your report numbers. We got somebody crime down, you get a raise. We got something, wait a minute, if I have to sell stuff, I get commission on my capabilities of what I do as performance. Why can't we not hold city officials at the same level of performance? If not doing a good job, you're doing a thing on your own.
Sure, actually, I 100% agree with you there. If a city commissioner is doing a good job, yes, they should be paid more, just like any other job. It should, yeah, we should all be held to the same standard. If the people of Portland feel like that their city commissioner is not representing their interests in the specific areas that they've been assigned, maybe they should have a lower paycheck, or maybe they should be replaced. I 100% agree with you, and I think that that's where we need to go.
I highly recommend that everyone here go on a police ride-along. You will see what they deal with hour to hour, minute to minute even. And it's very interesting. I live in the Reed neighborhood, and I wanted to go on a ride-along there where I live. I would have to go to Central Precinct to get with an officer to do that. I won't go downtown. I refuse. So I went out to Southeast, Southeast. And so that area was from Burnside South and from right about Mall 205 to Gresham. Huge area. There's not nearly enough officers. It's one of the busiest sections of the city at night, which was when I was with him. And I spent 6 hours. They didn't do the whole shift. But it's really amazing what they do and what they have to put up with. It will give you a whole new outlook.
Yeah, okay. Well, in that case, I mean, I live in East Portland as well, and sure, I'll make sure to make plans to ride along with a police officer, but sure. Just at least see what they go through. That way we have a better understanding. I mean, we should have city commissioners who actually do understand what our police are doing. Thank you.
You said that you want to get violent mobs off the city streets. And you know what? I agree with you 100%.
Yes.
Back on May 1st, though, you were seen walking with a violent mob that walked up to a group of people at Cite a Riot, and they had video of the planned attack that they were talking about. And you were part of that group that walked up to Cite a Riot. You were there with them, and they attacked Cite a Riot. In fact, some of those people that you were with are facing felony charges. What do you have to say about that?
Say anybody who thinks that should see the video.
Yeah. Can we ask the candidate, please?
Sure. So here's what I'm going to say about that. I was not part of that plan. I showed up right before people walked up. It's all on camera as soon as me and Haley here actually walked up. And yeah, again, you can go back and see the footage. I was not seen, causing any damage to anything. I didn't yell. I mean, yeah, I did yell, but sure, everybody did. Sorry. But that's currently what's going on right now in Portland. That's an issue, I believe. And looking back at it, whether a mob is, let's say, left-wing or right-wing, I think that if people in Portland are going around and committing acts of violence on innocent people, that is wrong. But no matter what your view is, that is wrong.
So you denounced that group? You denounced that group that walked up to Cite a Riot? Patriot Prayer?
What?
Patriot Prayer was the group that walked up to Cite a Riot that you were a part of that day.
I condemn specific people's actions. I was not part of that.
I'm asking about Patriot Prayer. What do you feel about them?
No, they have the right to their freedom of speech. If anybody's facing charges, they will face the law, and that's what matters. Other questions?
Your campaign manager has, I've seen pictures online of her supporting the Confederate flag, and I'd like to hear your opinion.
I don't support that. That's not my view, but people have a right to freedom of speech. The First Amendment protects that. Next question.
A larger question is that sometime last year I saw video footage of the city council arguing, I kid you not, the allowance of allowing future police officers to be able to get past a marijuana restriction on becoming police officers. I was in this room about 4 months ago, talking to him, and she's explained to him, if you allow that prohibition to go away, any arrest that's committed by that police officer could be argued out of court. Last time you spoke up, they don't know, out of court. Would you be still, as a candidate, as commissioner, making sure that prohibition is still maintained for future police recruiters?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
She has really bad landlords.
Basic short version, you can't smoke pot and be a cop.
Yes.
And will you maintain that prohibition?
Yes, I'd say that's, as of right now at least, that should be maintained until maybe some research comes out that says maybe it's better for it not to be. Maybe we can see, look to Canada and see how their police are doing. But we'll find out. Next question.
So knowing that you are on the right, which is fine, how do you see being able to work within the city council and the mayor and so many people in Portland being on the left? How do you see being able to cohesively work with everybody?
Well, I believe in diversity of ideas. I feel that our current city council does represent certain people in our city's views, but it doesn't represent everyone's views. I think that personally, what we should do is have diversity of ideas, people with different ideas coming to city council together to talk about this and come to a solution for the problems facing our people here in Portland. I think that's, yeah, I'm willing to sit down with Ted Wheeler or any other candidate or any other city commissioner. I'm willing to find solutions to these issues because it's time to stop separating these issues by left or right or any of these other things. And instead, we need to actually find solutions to these issues because this is going on long enough where not enough is being done.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Just out of curiosity, I've seen footage of what appeared to be you and your campaign manager showing up in support of the Hammerskins, which is a right-wing Nazi biker gang in Washington.
So an hour before that, actually, we did put out a statement saying that we were there to protest against the Hammerskins. We made that perfectly clear repeatedly because that hate I don't think that that's right to happen. You know what I mean? Yeah, sure, there's different groups, but I'm saying that is a whole, that's just wrong, in my opinion.
I think we can all agree there's Nazis
Yes.
are wrong. Okay, good.
Yes, we were there to protest, and we made that repeatedly clear. Also, throughout the video of that, or the footage of that video that you're talking about, we did repeatedly state that we were there to protest against the Hammerskins, and I stand by that.
Excellent.
Okay, so Nazis are bad, but.
I think violence is bad, but.
Confederate flags, okay.
Well, here's the thing when it comes to that. I've been to the South, and unfortunately, or fortunately, however it looks, a lot of people down there do have certain pride in, I guess, their past, which I don't advocate for that personally. I'm not from the South. I've just lived down there while stationed in the Army. I used to call people out for that while I was down there. Like, in the service, I would go into people's rooms. I'd see, like, oh, whoa, that's weird, but they argue at life and death. Apparently, that's their, I don't know, apparently for them, that's a cultural thing. I personally, though, I condemn it. I think that's on me, but, yeah.
But your campaign manager.
First Amendment. Next question.
Last question for me. My understanding is that Portland is not helping ICE enforce laws. Are you going to, even as a lone voice, will you say law from top to bottom, from federal level to the city level to support the enforcement of law?
So, okay, when it comes to ICE, my view is this. I believe that that's a federal department and that the city of Portland and whoever the police commissioner is, they'll come to a decision on that. I feel that as a city commissioner, that does not involve me, but if there is a vote on that, we'll decide it then. You have questions? Sure.
So what qualifications do you have for this position?
Well, okay, so for that, I mean, I went to college for a few years. I do have an associate's, but I mean, that's more than currently our current city commissioner has. But
It's a low bar. It's a very low bar.
Let's add on to that. Okay, so, but in my view though, okay, so I've gone out, I've talked to people all over Portland, and in my view, what I really want to do is a direct line of government. I think that whether it's me or somebody else, somebody should go and be elected and be willing to talk to everybody in Portland. That way we can solve our solutions. I feel like that is where I specialize here, is because I'm actually willing to talk to everyone, okay? I'm not going to just, yeah. I think that's how we need to do this. I mean, yeah. Next question. Okay.
Well, thank you everyone for attending, and we managed to civilly discuss things. I'm really happy with the results here, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.